The Holy Father has made history with his mission to the United Arab Emirates as the first ever pope to go there. So what are the possible fruits of this journey? To dig into that question, we're joined by Crux Editor-In-Chief, John Allen. John, always good to talk to you.
Hi, Liz.
How are you, John? We just heard from our reporter, Emily Druby, who talked about this historic beautiful mass in Abu Dhabi. The U.A.E. is celebrating their year of tolerance, and part of that is hosting Pope Francis for his outreach to the Islamic world. All that said, what will be the lasting implications of the Holy Father coming together with Muslim leaders?
Well, Liz, I mean, this is a classic journalistic dodge, but I will employ it anyway. The answer is it's too early to tell.
Right.
Obviously, as you say, the point here was to celebrate tolerance and peace and dialogue among the followers of various faiths, in this case, principally Christians and Muslims. And Francis did that to a T. He, of course, signed a joint declaration with the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar Mosque and University in Egypt, which is widely considered the Vatican of the Sunni Muslim world. The Sunnis are about 80% of the world's Muslim population. All of that is to the good, but whether that is going to change concrete situations on the ground remains to be seen. You mentioned the beauty of the papal liturgy today in Abu Dhabi, and it really was remarkable. But let's remember there's a huge irony built into that, which is that this was the first ever public Christian liturgy in the U.A.E. Generally speaking, non-Muslim forms of religious expression are banned in public in the U.A.E. Religious diversity is tolerated as long as it's kept private, but you're not allowed to wear it on your sleeve. The question will be whether going forward all of that is going to loosen up, where Christians have a little bit more breathing space, a little bit more opportunity to be loud and proud on a public basis.
And of course, the Pope, not one to sit still for too long, will be traveling to Morocco in late March. That's going to mark another step forward in his mission for interreligious dialogue. What can we expect from that trip? Does the document on human fraternity create like a great foundation for that?
The top note of that trip will be the Pope extending his outreach to the Islamic world, but I would expect another twist there as well, Liz. Remember, Morocco is where the United Nations compacts on global migration were recently signed. That's an effort that the Pope had enthusiastically supported, and some people actually expected him to go to Morocco for the signing ceremony. So I also suspect that the Pope will use that trip as an opportunity to carry his argument for interreligious dialogue one step further and say that in addition to talking to each other, and in addition to being friends with one another, we also need to come together to work together to pool our efforts on behalf of those shared moral, social, political, humanitarian objectives that Francis regards as so compelling, so critical in the early 21st century, with the care of migrants and refugees obviously being very near the top of his personal list.
Did this trip measure up to your expectations, John?
Well, look, the U.A.E., Abu Dhabi, they're great hosts. The choreography of this trip was just absolutely fantastic. Here in Rome, I was watching the feed of the Mass this morning, and I watched the papal motorcade as it made its way to that downtown stadium where the liturgy took place. And you had military planes flying overhead, spewing the white and yellow of the papal flag. I mean, it was like out of a Fellini film. And we have seen carefully choreographed and high-spirited papal trips before. Whether this amounts to a real sort of turning of the page in terms of an Islamic society genuinely trying to make space for its religious minorities, that's the $64,000 question, and unfortunately, we don't have an answer to it today, Liz.
All right, John, thank you so much for the perspective you did provide. Like I said before, always great talking to you, sir.
A pleasure.